Okay, we just got back from vacation and I'm such a mess, but I have so much to talk about, so stick around. Welcome back for the second episode of my podcast. I'm Bailey, I'm the Copycat Stitch, and I've got a lot of fibercraft stuff to talk about today. It's mostly knitting, I got some crochet to throw around. I also have a ton of acquisitions because we just got back from a road trip. We went through a lot of the eastern US, some of the Midwest. I stopped at 6 local yarn stores and I brought back a lot of stuff with me. So I would love to show it. I ended up with way more to talk about today than I thought I was going to have. I genuinely convinced myself that I can, like, I already shot a second episode of this podcast like 2 weeks ago. And I was telling myself my whole road trip, like, oh, I'll just edit that and pop it up when I get back. No, I didn't record it. It was all in my head. And it's still over here. Annie's back. Are you surprised? Causing trouble. It's still here waiting for me to talk about, so I have a lot to get through. I think I want to start with finished objects. So, if you follow me on Instagram, you've already seen most of these because I've worn them all. But, alright, this is in no particular order, I guess, because I don't really remember what order I finished them in. This is a Mira tee. I do not remember all of the details offhand, so I'll put them on the screen. But I know that I used 2 skeins of Noro Nishiki. It's a cotton yarn. And this is like a really nice open, I don't know how well it's showing up on here, like an eyelet, garter stitch, repeat. Super easy. I think I made this in a couple of days. It's really comfy. It's so playful because of the colors. I wore it on my vacation. There's Annie. If you haven't met before, she's a troublemaker, but she's lovable, so we deal with it. And she's always getting into my stuff. And I swear, everybody's commenting about how she's getting into my yarn. She never has an interest in my yarn unless I'm sitting here recording a podcast. Like, unless I'm using the yarn for something, she couldn't care less. So, you gonna let me do this? Okay. I have another t-shirt that I made. This one is so comfy. If you watched my last podcast, you saw that I acquired this yarn. I had 2 skeins. It's Juniper Moon Cumulus, and I do not remember the colorway names, but I know I had this one variegated, like, speckly one, and then this one neutral one to go with it. Again, I don't remember what the t-shirt is called. I don't think it was meant to be striped. I added the stripes. It was a solid color tee. But this is so soft. I did make a mistake when I was doing it. I think you could probably see it if I like fold it funny like this. But since, like I said, the pattern didn't have the stripes and I added them. And I added like a different number of stripes on the back panel than I did on the front. And I don't know how I convinced myself that I had done it differently. And I guess I didn't double check. But when I was finished, one panel was slightly longer than the other one. But just enough that I wasn't willing to like frog the whole thing and fix it. So I just kind of eased them together along the seams, and I don't think it's noticeable at all. And it's a very comfy one, another one that I wore on my road trip and that you would have seen on my Instagram. Okay. This one's a big one. I love this one so much. This was a whip last time, and it's now a really like deliciously squishy finished object. This one is House Blend Cardigan from the Coffee House Knits book. So it's so hard to show at this angle, especially with this nosy little cat. It's you. Well, I've got these buttons along the front, these big chunky ivory colored buttons, and one of my favorite parts is that I lined the pockets. I've been going through a phase lately. I'm really enjoying making like bags and in this case pockets, and making a fabric lining and sewing it in. Like I'm just getting so much enjoyment out of knitting something, but then having a fabric liner whip stitched into it, it just makes it like that much more finished to me. I don't know if you can see it. Again, I'm obsessed with strawberries. It happened. I never stop talking about them. It's a thing. I don't know how well you can see, but my pockets are lined with this strawberry print fabric, which makes it a lot more functional. I love having pockets, but knit pockets tend to stretch, and not be super functional, especially if you're trying to put something heavier like a cell phone in there. So these have worked perfectly. The cotton lining has kept them from stretching or being a problem at all. I've worn this quite a few times. It's extremely comfy. And it's pretty lightweight too. It's a good one to have for summertime. Another lightweight for summertime one. So this, I didn't even have the yarn last time I did a podcast. I went to Michael's to get something else. Like, this is always how it goes, right? You run in to get like one thing, and then I happened to spot some yarn that was on sale. Actually, I've got a couple more here. These are in my acquisitions bin, but we'll overlap a little. They're Karen cotton funnel cakes, and they were marked down a lot. And I've worked with not this exact one before, but I think it was just called Karen Cotton Cakes I've worked with before. This one's a little more wibbly. I don't know what the name is when the yarn is thick and thin. This is the colorway Coral, and I had 2 cakes of Coral, and then I also had 2 cakes of whatever this color is. I don't remember. But I basically, the day after I went to Michael's, came home and just like needed to use it. So I made another hexie cardigan out of it. It's a little small, it's a little cropped because I used every last inch of that yarn in this sweater. I had 0 scraps from this, not even snips from weaving the ends in. Like, I cut it so close, and I had to cut corners on this and find creative ways to kind of cut rows off to make sure I had enough yarn to stretch it through. And since it's a hexie cardigan, so it's symmetrical, and since I had 2 cakes of yarn, it was pretty easy to kind of guess and check and just anticipate that I was going to use most of each cake for 1/2 of the cardigan, and then just kind of reserve enough to do the cuff and the ribbing along the ends. So it's a little cropped. The sleeves are a touch shorter than I would want them to be even after blocking, but it's really soft and comfy, and it's so airy, and I've already worn it a couple times. Like, again, it's a really great summer piece. You know, I didn't expect to sit down today and talk about the 2 mint green summer cardigans I made for myself, but here we are. I didn't know that was the thing that I was doing. But I'm a very impulsive maker. Like, I have 1,000 whips at a time, which is something I'm going to talk about soon. I've got a big UFO project coming up where I'm going to work on a bunch of my UFOs this summer, which stay tuned for that, please, because that is a big undertaking. But I'm the type of person that just starts a bunch of projects and kind of works on them as I wish, but also, like, this is my hobby. This is fun for me, and I'm not going to push myself or force myself to finish things if I'm not enjoying them. Like, that's not the point. I'm not going to let myself feel guilt over having supplies or having unfinished projects, because I'll take care of it at some point, which is what I'm gearing up to do this summer. It's, you know, I've gotten to kind of a breaking point with the amount of space my UFOs are taking up, and I'm going to deal with it. But for now, I'm just going to go where the wind takes me, and apparently it's taking me to mint green summer cardigans. And then I have one more finished object, which is kind of weird because I literally started this less than 24 hours ago and it's already done, and I'm just astounded at how quick it worked up. This is, I believe it's called Stonecrop Tote. It's from One Dog Wolf. I got it as a kit from Lion Brand. It's really textured. It's so sturdy. I really needed another like daily use tote bag. I made one for myself about a year ago out of Hue and Me yarn, and I really liked it, and I think I also bought that one as a kit from Lion Brand, and it was less stiff and sturdy than this one, certainly, but it really held up super well, and I've been using it virtually every day. It's kind of just my standard work tote that I throw everything in the morning before I go to work, and it gets really beat up, right? But it was less sturdy than this one to start with, and it's held up really well, but it's kind of getting to the point where, I mean, it's fine. I could probably use it for another 10 years and it would hold up, but I want a new one. I've had the same tote bag for a year. I'm ready for some change, and I just love the texture of this one. It's a super easy stitch repeat. I couldn't believe how fast. Like I said, it's about 4:30 right now. I started this one, I think, at about 5 or 6 p.m. yesterday, and it worked up so easy. Again, I think I'm gonna probably sew a fabric liner into this one just to make it more usable, add a couple pockets, and I'm really feeling that right now. I'm really enjoying having fabric liners in my makes, so I'm rolling with it because it's really upping the enjoyment for me. So as far as whips, most of the whips I have are the same as last month. I've still got my slow burn whips, the jute stitch blanket, the Honey Bop cardigan. Those are not going anywhere. I've barely touched them. I've done a little bit of work on the Yorkville wrap, but I've kind of just, everything else I would say is probably a UFO, and will come up in my UFO video because I'm not totally keeping on top of those. So I have a couple whips that I'm not going to talk about today because they're part of my travel knitting video. I'm making a whole separate video about how I set myself up and like tips and trips for taking your knitting on the road with you. And part of that video is I filmed a little bit before I left, during, and I'm going to film a clip about after and how far I got. So I'm not going to talk about those whips because I'm showing the before and after in that video. And I don't need to be that redundant. But I have 2 garments that I got really, really far on that trip. So I'm excited to show those, but I'm not going to waste your time here because I'm already doing it in that one. So as far as that, the only other active whip I have is this one. And this is, like I said, I am such an impulsive knitter. I started this top. I don't remember what it's called. Oh, I'm not sure I know what it's called because I suppose it might be called Alessia. This pattern is wholly in German, and I don't speak German personally, but it had a chart. It's a free pattern. It had a lot of measurements on it, and Google Translate and I pieced it together enough based on the little stitch key that they provided for the chart that it's good enough. I don't need it to be perfect to the pattern. This is what I wanted. It looks like the picture. Okay. I'll wait it out. Okay, so as I was saying, I'm a very impulsive knitter. I started this one, I did this whole panel in like less than a day. Again, like less than 24 hours. I think I started it on a Thursday. I was done with this panel by Friday. I really like it. It's coming along really nicely. It's Lion Brand Touch of Linen. I have this in several other colorways. This colorway, I should say, is Quill. I really like the feel of the finished fabric. It's a really nice lightweight blend. I think it's definitely got a touch of linen, but the rest of it might be cotton. It feels like it, certainly. Yes, 51% cotton, 49%. That's more than a touch, Lion Brand. That's a good amount of linen. Amy's all tangled up in this. Anyway, the finished fabric is really nice. I think it'll make a great top, especially because it's cotton and linen, and it'll definitely soften with wear and with washing. It's going to be so cute. Knitting with this yarn started to grate on me. Like I said, I did it in 24 hours. I did a lot of it all at once, and it was starting to really like wick the moisture out of my hands. It became uncomfortable to keep working on this, and I kind of set it aside to give myself a couple days to fall in love with it again, and I didn't, and it's been sitting aside for a couple weeks. So I think it might officially be a UFO. And that's not as far as I got either. I got halfway through the second panel. So I was probably 70 to 75% of the way done with this project, and I kind of fell off of it. But like I've mentioned, I'm planning on dealing with my UFOs soon, later this week. So I'll come around to it. It'll show up again. It'll get done soon. I'll wear it this summer. But that's where it is right now. So I'm going to talk about acquisitions now. I have a lot. This is going to end up taking up a huge portion of the podcast. I'm going to talk about the ones that I have from before I went on vacation, and then I'm going to do all of the road trip ones together in order because it's a lot to think about. So some of these, I kind of don't even remember the details about them. This seems crazy to me, but they've been here so long. I don't know how I convinced myself I already filmed this. but I did. So we already talked about this, Karen cotton funnel cakes. Super soft, super fun. Don't know what I'm going to do with this, but I really like it. I'm kind of thinking it would make a really nice one of those little, like, airy short-sleeved cardigans that Evelyn and Peter Crochet has done a bunch of. I feel like she's got like 3 or 4 nice patterns, and this seems like a good amount to do one of those because it could be a little bit oversized because there's such an like open work crochet and they don't have sleeves. So I definitely wouldn't have to play the same intense game of yarn chicken that I played when I used this for a full-size cardigan. That's a good idea, actually. Maybe I'll... See? Impulsive. Unbelievable. I got this fabric, novelty fabric, because I went to get fabric for a different project that's now gone. I guess I could have talked about that. I forgot all about it. I made a tote bag for a friend. I don't have any pictures of it. I cannot show it to you. But a gift for a friend who got a new job, and I was excited for her. And I made her a crochet tote bag that she's a sailor, I guess. Is that still what you call people? I don't know. She's very into sailing. She has a sailboat. It's her passion. So one side had an anchor, the other side had a sailboat on it, and I bought a nautical little novelty fabric to sew the lining inside. And when I was there getting that, I found this, which I'm just in love with. I don't know how much it's come through. I'm sure touches of it showed up in my craft room tour and otherwise. But I love dinosaurs. They're some of my favorites. Stegosauruses are my favorite animal, and they have been for a very long time, and I collect them, and I've got a whole mess of stuff in my life with stegosauruses on it, and I just thought this pattern was so cute, especially because most dinosaur patterns are novelty patterns for kids, especially geared towards traditional ideas of like masculinity and like little boys. So this one I just thought was a really nice kind of different pattern. And it's just quilting cotton. I'll probably think about making a garment with it and then it will sit in my stash forever, but I'm glad I have it. Maybe it would make a good lining for this tote bag. Ooh. That's something to think about. It's like that or strawberries, right? It's going to be strawberries or stegosaurus, as we all know. Okay, what is here? Oh, I remember. I got stitch markers. Oh, these are so cute. These are so cute. I forgot. I haven't used these because I was saving them to show on the podcast, and I haven't used them at all. I'm so excited because now I'll be able to take them out and use them. So I bought a bunch of stitch markers. I went a little nuts because I was already getting some, and then I just kept adding them because they're so cute. So these are from Jackie Bean. I don't know, it's just an assortment of little stitch markers. I love them. I think they're so cute. I love this type of enamel. I have a lot of enamel pins and things that I collect from travels, and oh, I love them so much. I can't wait to use these. That's a little press. Look at this. It's like Annie, but less dopey. Oh. Very exciting. Very exciting. I thought I had more too. I had some stitch markers from another maker, but I must not have put them up here. Oh well, stop it. So my knit crate for the month is so cute. This is 2 skeins of Vitalana Lofty DK, which is, are you done? I have yarn to talk about. 48 merino wool, 20 baby alpaca, 32 Pima cotton. So it sounds like a hodgepodge. It's delightful. I'm going through a chainette phase because I loved making that house blend cardigan, and that was all a chainette. And I'm working on one of the travel whips that I'm going to talk about in my travel video was also a chainette yarn, and I'm just loving. I don't know what it is. I'm just enjoying the texture of it so much and the way it works up so cleanly. So this is a chainette. Let's see if I can get a strand there. It's this beautiful, beautiful bright pink color. It's called Spray Rose. It's one of their 3 colorways for the month. I knew it was coming. I always look at the previews for Knit Crate before I get them because I want to change my preference if I like one of the other colorways better. So I wasn't sure for this one. I just kind of let it ride because I didn't particularly like any one of the colorways better than the other ones. But then this showed up and it's so squishy and I immediately ordered 4 more. That's not true. I waited for a sale, but I added 4 more to my cart and then I waited to get the sale email from them and then I went back and purchased 4 more because the moment this entered my life, I knew it needed to be a cardigan. This just screams cardigan to me and these 2 were never going to cut it. So I got 4 more and I am going to make, I have no idea which one. I have no plans, but it's going to be wonderful when it happens. I love it so much. This color makes me so happy. Again, there's like themes here, like everything I'm doing, right? It's like peach and pale green lately. I'm rolling with it. I don't care. I'm happy. So here I have a local dyer. So this is not a dyer I had ever heard of. We being my husband and I went to a little local like fair. It was like super small. I think we got there early and like nobody had set up and it was kind of awkward, but we did it around anyway and it was mostly like antique booths that didn't have anything interesting or like local jam preserves kind of companies. But there was one on the end that was a yarn dyer and I was so happy. This is her company. It's from Hamilton, New York. Knitting Noodles, which of course I'm gonna love it. I love noodles. I love pasta of all sorts. She's got her Etsy shop there. It says etsy.com/shop/crisis knitting. So she was there. She was so nice and I browsed all of this. Again, very small business. I think she's just getting started. It's all done at home. These are printed on a home printer, but I love them. I think she's really got a hand for it. Like look at this colorway. Let's scooch this down a bit. Just look at it. It's just like the creamiest colors. I can't. And then I got this blue to go with it. It's a tonal blue. Who knows what it'll be. Maybe a cowl, maybe a hat or something for winter. They're wool, so I probably won't use it anytime soon, but I just loved it. This one I adore. It's like funfetti. I wonder what she calls it. So soft, so comfy. And it's a fingering weight. She doesn't have a colorway name on it, but that's what I'll call it. It feels like funfetti. It's just a white base with so many different colors sprinkled onto it. So pretty. And then she also had a couple that she had hand spun, which I don't see as much of around here. So I picked up one of those. I thought this is just like pinks and reds and grays. And I really liked it. Again, probably not going to use these until winter. They're wool, but I thought they were so pretty and it seemed like such a good opportunity to support a local business, especially at a weird empty craft fair where there was nobody around and she didn't seem to be getting much interest that day. Okay, let's talk about my travel knitting because I took a whole yarn road trip. Like it wasn't only yarn, but okay, it primarily wasn't yarn. I shouldn't say that, but I made it about yarn, right? So my husband and I went on a road trip. It was 12 days long. And we went to a bunch of different baseball games, a ton of museums. We went to an amusement park. It was so much fun. We did so much over 12 days. And over those 12 days, I managed to stop at 6 local yarn stores in 6 different cities. So here's everything that I got. I guess I'm going to try to go through it chronologically because that's what makes the most sense to me. If you follow me on Instagram, you'll have kind of seen it and played along with it because I kept track of my whole trip in my stories. If you want to go check it out, I saved all of my stories from the entire trip to a road trip highlight reel. What are they called? Highlights. Stories highlights on my page so you can go back and look. I'm going to try to include some of the footage in this so you can see the yarn stores that I bought it from while I'm talking about them. But it was a lot. And I tried so hard not to spend all my money, right? Because like I know I'm going to go to more yarn stores. I know I'm going to a bunch of other places. I think I did good. I don't think I overdid it overall. And some places I didn't even buy yarn. So that's weird, right? So the first store we went to was on the second day of our trip. It is in Washington, D.C. and it's called Looped. It was so cute. It was like in an older house. It was in an adorable little neighborhood. We stopped and got gelato on the way up. I really loved it. I did spend a little more at this one than some of the others, but it was so cute. So the first thing I want to show, I love this. I looked for one of these before I left and I couldn't find one, but this is just a little keychain. It's made out of cedar and it's got their logo on it, but it's got the little tiny blade in there. It's made by Katrinkles. It's got that little blade in there so that you can snip yarn. But it doesn't have an exposed blade or you don't have scissors. And I wanted one of these before we left, as I talk about in my travel video, because I went to a lot of ballparks when we were gone and I brought my knitting to 4 out of the 5 baseball games, and I don't want to try to bring scissors in. Not that I don't know. I've never had any taken away, but they can be so random about what they decide is dangerous or a weapon, and they've got pretty strict bag policies at some of them. So I found this before we went to any of the baseball games, so I was super excited because I picked it up and then I was able to take it with me for the rest of the trip. So I got this project bag, which I love so much. It is so cute. It has a big pocket on the outside. It's got several little pockets on the inside and a zipper pocket. It doesn't say who made it. It just says, it has a tag on there for Looped Yarn Works. So I have no idea. Oh! I found it. They had a card in there. It says 5 to 6 handmade. There we go. That answers that. So also at that store, all I bought was the keychain, the bag, and then they had Magpie. Now, I've heard a lot about Magpie on other podcasts and just on the internet in general. It's not one that's carried by me, but it's kind of local to DC. It's done in Maryland, I think. So this was actually in the sale closet. She had these on sale. It's mohair, and it's a very soft, tonal, kind of like hunter green. It's really pretty. And it's the colorway Feather. I just got 2 of these. Just kidding. This yarn base is called Feather. It's the colorway Tactical, which makes more sense. Looks like tactical green. Really nice. I love hand-dyed mohair, and it doesn't abound around here. There's not a lot of it up here, so I got that, and I got another one that I'll show you in a minute. So the second yarn store that I went to was several days later. We also took day trips to Philadelphia and Baltimore while we were there, but since we didn't take the car, we took transit. We didn't have a way to get to any of the local yarn stores because they were kind of outside of town and they were too far to walk. So we didn't end up going to any there, which is probably okay because I would have ended up going to like 20 yarn stores, and then what would I do? I got this Lantern Moon bag, which I think is so adorable. It's a cinch top bag. I got it at a really cute shop in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. It might have been in Gatlinburg. I think it's in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. We stayed in Pigeon Forge. We went to Dollywood. But we went to Gatlinburg to see this yarn store, and it's called Smoky Mountain Spinnery. And like the name sounds, it was kind of geared more towards spinning. It had a ton of spinning equipment and like roving and unspun wool, and it looked really cool. I don't do any of that, so I wasn't really sure what to look at, but they did have a pretty good selection of yarn. They had some commercial yarn, and they had a lot of hand-dyed stuff too. Now this is something that I was unfamiliar with, but I saw it at like several more of the local yarn stores that we hit after this. But Knitted Wit has this whole series that she does, and I don't know if it's an annual thing or if it's just this summer, but she's done a whole bunch of colorways for the national parks, and they're so pretty. And this store had all of them, or most of them. I'm not sure how many there are, and there was a postcard about the program. I got 2 skeins of Smoky Mountain National Park because that's where we were. That's where we spent a couple days, was in the Smokies, and it was so beautiful and such a fun experience. And we went there because I wanted to go to Dollywood, and I loved Dollywood, and we had a great time. and this just seemed like the perfect souvenir to take home from that. So a couple days later, we drove from Tennessee to Kentucky. We stayed in Louisville for a couple days, but we drove through Lexington, and I wanted to stop because I had seen this store online and I thought it was so cute. It's called Rebound. So adorable, and it's in like a little converted bungalow, so it was one of the larger yarn stores that I've seen because they spread out through the entire first floor of this bungalow. There was so many rooms, there was so much to look at. They had a ton of the more commercial ones, but like by commercial I mean like, you know, like Juniper Moon and Madeline Tosh and the bigger brands that are kind of everywhere that I wasn't really browsing as much because I know I can get them online. I know I can get them at my own local yarn store. I was trying to find interesting or different things. At every store I went to, I was asking where they keep the the local hand-dyed stuff or locally spun stuff. And I ended up getting a lot of bags too, as I've been showing you, because that to me makes a nice souvenir, to be able to see the bag, that I can use these as project bags and remind myself of the trip. But this one ended up being like a really cool way to remind myself also, because we stopped in Lexington and they had these patterns that were distributed by Blue Sky Fibers, and this one is called the Lexington Cowl. We were only in Lexington for a couple hours. We went to this store, and then my husband wanted to stop at one local distillery there, and then we were on our way to Louisville. And I thought it was so cool that this cowl is called the Lexington Cowl, and I was like, that would make such a great souvenir for our time here. I'll definitely remember it. I'll remember where it came from. And the pattern was free if you bought 2 skeins of Blue Sky alpaca silk. So I knew I wanted to use at least one variegated colorway and then 2 solids with it. So I spent a very long time scouring through that store to find a variegated one that was about the right weight that I thought I would like. And this one's maybe not, it's technically fingering, but the pattern calls for sport weight, but I think it was so pretty and it kind of works, and I think it'll be fine. This is what they look like together. Oh, I love them. It's going to be such a nice cowl. So I ended up going back and getting the 2 skeins of alpaca silk, because then the pattern was free and they had a good selection. So the alpaca silk had some of the best selection of colors for sport weight there, so I ended up going back and I thought it matched this one really well. The variegated one, not a company I'm familiar with. It was not a local. It's Koiku? Oh my gosh. It says it's from Ontario. And it's wool, and it says it's fingering. It's hand painted. I think it looks like it'll stand up to these sport weights fine. Especially, it's like a linen stitch kind of pattern. That is just, I don't know. I love the colors there. I think it's going to be so pretty. And again, I'm always going to remember that it's like the Lexington Cowl, and it's the yarn that I bought in Lexington, right? It's not, I think that's the best kind of souvenir. After that, we drove, still on the way to what's it called? Still on the way to Louisville. We stopped at Grange Kentucky, which is super cute. They didn't have very much local there. It was a smaller store. I looked through it. Nothing really spoke to me. But then I found she had a sale corner, so I did end up getting some Juniper Moon stuff, which, again, I could probably get at home, but they had good prices on it, and it was pretty. So, a couple of these. Is it Nev? Like Nev Campbell? I don't know. 2 skeins of this. Very soft. I think it's got to be cotton. Yep, 100% cotton. And it's a chainette, so you know I'm going to use it. And then we're back. Cumulus. Again, I had such a good time making up that t-shirt. I initially bought the Cumulus that I made the shirt from because I loved that dappled colorway so much. And they had this in the sales corner. It was really relatively inexpensive for what it is, considering I just paid $50 for the 2 skeins that I made that t-shirt from to go down there. And I don't love these colors as deeply as I loved those. I wasn't swept off my feet by them, but the fact that I got both of these for like $22, it's definitely worth it, and I could definitely try to make another t-shirt or something similar out of it. And it is, again, the softest yarn. So pretty though, and it's so fun and upbeat. Like this purple is something. I love it. Okay, so Oh, you know, I should say, when we were in Tennessee, we did a little antiquing too. There was one rainy day when we didn't really want to go to the water park like we had planned, and we ended up driving to a couple of antique stores. I got a bunch of little sewing things, zippers, some vintage thread and buttons and stuff. I'll put the picture up so you can see those because I don't need to dig it all out now, which is cute. I got all that for $5 at an antique store. But then on our way into Kentucky, so I guess it was a little bit before we stopped at the Lexington store, there's a welcome center in Kentucky, and this was like the cutest thing. It was kind of like a rest stop, but it was huge, and it had like a little permanent arts and crafts fair, kind of like handmade items from local artisans just set up. So you could walk through and kind of look. They had art on the walls, like a gallery that was available for purchase, and they had a whole mess of different types of handmade everything. Like it was like a full art fair, but in a rest stop. It was so cool. So we went and looked around at that, and this is the only thing we bought, but I was so taken with it because, once again, strawberries. It is a handmade little pincushion with this adorable strawberry print on it. And I couldn't leave without it. It's got this nice wooden base. It's super sturdy. It says that it was made in Nicholasville, Kentucky. And it's a shaker pincushion, cherry wood base. I love it. I'm so pleased with this. It's the most beautiful thing. It's perfect for my craft room. So I guess I got a little out of order there, but I forgot about that. It wasn't a yarn store. Honey. So we went to Louisville for a few days, and then our plan was to, on the second to last day, drive through Ohio. We had one night booked in Ohio and tickets to a Cleveland Guardians game, and then we're just going to come back to upstate New York the next day. So on that day, which was mostly driving through Ohio, I asked for some recommendations on Instagram, specifically tagging Tony Lipsy because I know she lives in Ohio and she would know all the good ones. And she came through. She sent me, I think, 8 recommendations. She knows all about the yarn stores, so I just kind of picked and chose based on which ones were open when we were passing through and which we would have to go least out of our way for. And I did get some nice recommendations from other people on Instagram, so thanks for those. But we ended up going to 2. We stopped in Cincinnati because even though we didn't have time to catch a Reds game on our baseball road trip, they do have a really neat museum dedicated to the history of the Cincinnati Reds and like their Hall of Fame, and it was really neat to walk through that for a little while. And then we went to a yarn store, and that one is Hank, a yarn boutique. And I actually ended up not buying any yarn there at all. I just got this bag, which is like a really nice sturdy bag, and it's just the perfect size. I love tiny tote bags so much, and I also love pigs, so I think this is just like a really cute little souvenir, so I won't forget. Not that I would like forget the store, but you know, I wanted like a little souvenir from every store, and this one seemed like a good choice. But like I said, I didn't buy any yarn there, not because they didn't have a great selection, but because most of what they had was the bigger, more commercial brands, and almost everything they had there were brands that my local yarn store carries here, and I didn't feel like anything was super special or memorable, but I definitely wanted to get the bag. So that's what I left with. And then after that, we drove to Columbus, so we like broke up Ohio into really nice bite-sized chunks, stopping for yarn along the way. And this was the cutest store. Like, not that I don't love all of the stores, but this store was so cute. It's called Yarnit and Haberdashery. I think it's Yarnit and Dash on Instagram. And the moment I walked in, the first thing I saw was this trunk show from it's Latin. I guess nobody speaks Latin. Ex Libris? I don't know. It was beautiful, and I saw this bundle of minis the moment I walked in, and I couldn't leave without it. They're so pretty. Who knows what I'll do. Again, this is going to be another one that's going to go into my probably work it up in winter bucket, but they're so pretty together. Who could turn this down? I don't know. I'm a sucker for colors. This yarn store had a great setup that that most of them didn't have it. Like I said, at all of them I was asking for what's local, like which of these dyers are from around here, because I'd like to bring back something kind of unique or regional. And all of the yarn stores had super helpful like owners or employees that were happy to help me and point me towards things and give me like tips and cool information about the local dyers and the local stuff. But this one I didn't even have to ask, because she had the whole trunk show table right inside the door, and on the back of that table it was all the local dyers. There was 3 of them set up, and she said one of them even works out of the back of their shop, which is super cool. There's so much. I could have bought 50 skeins of yarn, but you know, technically I couldn't have bought it because I would have gone broke. This one I loved the most and I fell in love with, and I was tempted to buy more than 1 skein, but I told myself that it's destined to be a shawl and that I can combine it with a solid color to kind of draw it out and really exemplify how pretty it is in a shawl later in the year. But it's just like the richest burgundy, and there's this teal, and then just everything in between. Again, super cute little facts and details from the owner and employees. She told me that the colorway is called Grandview Theater because it's actually based on a famous sign nearby in Columbus. So I thought that was so cool. Not something I ever would have recognized, but neat to learn all the same. And it's a very regional, very good souvenir from that city. So I will be happy to make this into a beautiful shawl later in the year. It's a fingering weight, so maybe, oh, what are they called? I've already got like 2 of them and I can't think of the name. I'll put it in later in text. You'll see. You already know because you read it and I'm sitting here struggling on my own. So anyway, the last thing I got there was hand-dyed mohair. I love it. It's so pretty. Again, I don't have a big selection of it here. And this, I just thought was so nice. And I've got a bunch of this like fingering weight kind of neutral yarn that I thought maybe I could combine with this to make a cardigan or a little sweater or something. This is from Molly Girl Yarns, and the colorway is Motown. Oh, that's so pretty. There's just so many blues and purples. So fuzzy. I love it. Alright, so I think I got through everything. That was a lot. That's all my yarn souvenirs, my whole yarn road trip. That was so fun, and I hope you head over to Instagram and check out my highlights so you can see the whole trip and all the knitting that I got to do at all the different ballparks and on all the different modes of transportation. And it was a really great trip overall. We had so much fun. I'm so glad we did it. I'm happy to be home. I'm absolutely exhausted, but I'm going to get back to it. I'm going to put all this away, and then shortly I will be coming out with my travel knitting video so you can see everything I worked on while I was gone. And then also upcoming my UFO summer project. So if you're like me and you have a lot of UFOs hiding somewhere in your house, like think about it, because I'm planning on working through as many of them as I can this summer. So maybe we could do it together. So check back to my channel for those videos, and I'll see you next time.